An underwater volcano off the coast of the USA is showing all the signs of an imminent eruption. And scientists are certain it's not a question of if, but when it will happen. Today, we'll take a look at what's happening out there in the Pacific, why this volcano both fascinates and worries researchers, and how high the tsunami risk really is. Welcome, everyone.
Volcanic eruptions are usually a tricky business. Even when there are already significant tremors and rumblings, it is very difficult to predict when the big one will actually happen. In this case, however, it's different. According to scientists, we will almost certainly see a violent volcanic eruption in the USA very soon.
By the way, if you always want to stay up to date with the latest findings in volcanology and other exciting fields of science, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now. Subscribing doesn't cost anything. You'll never miss another video and you'll be helping me out a lot. And if you've already subscribed, you can really help this video by giving it a thumbs up. Maybe we can hit 5,000 likes to really get the YouTube algorithm going. Thanks, everyone.
Imagine sitting comfortably on the American West Coast, eating a delicious burger and enjoying the view of the Pacific Ocean. What you don't know is that less than 300 miles off the coast, a gigantic volcano is lurking beneath the water, preparing to explode spectacularly.
Sounds like something out of a disaster movie, but it's reality. The Axial Seamount, that's the name of our protagonist today, is one of the most active underwater volcanoes in the entire North Pacific. And when I say active, I mean really active. This volcano sits about 480 kilometers off the coast of Oregon, about 1.5 kilometers below the water's surface. And it's really making a racket right now. In June of this year, the measuring instruments recorded an incredible 2,000 earthquakes in a single day. To put that into perspective, that's about 1.4 earthquakes per minute for 24 hours straight. So there's definitely something going on down there, but let's take it one step at a time. How does a volcano end up standing in the middle of the ocean anyway?
Axial Seamount is located on the Juan de Fuca Ridge, an active geological spreading zone. This is a place where two tectonic plates are drifting apart, constantly creating new seafloor surface. Imagine it as a crack in the Earth's mantle from which permanently hot magma flows. It is not without reason that this region is also known as the underwater Yellowstone.
However, there are no bison here like in Yellowstone Park, although underwater bison would be pretty cool. What makes the Axial Seamount so special is its predictability.
While most volcanoes are completely unpredictable and often surprise scientists, this underwater giant follows a fairly clear pattern. William Chadwick, a geophysicist at Oregon State University, explains, with many volcanoes around the world, they sit there and are quiet for a long time, and then suddenly they become active. But this one is pretty active all the time, at least during the time we've been studying it. When it's not erupting, it's preparing for the next eruption. And such an eruption is now imminent. The fascinating thing is that scientists can actually predict relatively accurately when this volcano will explode. How do they do that? They observe how the seabed fills up. Before each eruption, Axial Seamount inflates like a giant balloon. This happens because a magma chamber filled with hot rock fills up beneath the volcano, pushing the ground upward. Researchers have determined that when the volcano rises about 10 inches, the next eruption is imminent. And now it gets exciting. The volcano has already reached this critical mark. Chadwick is certain, at the current rate of inflation, I expect it to erupt by the end of 2025.
That's a pretty specific prediction for a volcano, and it's based on decades of observation. That's because the Axial Seamount erupted in 1998, 2011, and 2015, and each time it followed exactly the same uplift pattern. But how do scientists actually monitor a volcano that's 1.5 kilometers underwater? Do they all have diving licenses or a good connection to Poseidon? It's a logistical feat.
Axial Seamount is part of the Ocean Observatories Initiative and is equipped with a state-of-the-art cable network. Hundreds of kilometers of fiber optic cable run across the seafloor, supplying dozens of measuring stations with power and data transmission. These instruments measure earthquakes, ground deformation, temperature changes, and the chemical composition of the water around the clock.
So down there, the internet is actually better than in Germany. The data is transmitted to the researchers in real time. This means they can follow what's happening down there live from the office, dry and without a diving suit. This technology makes the Excel room the most closely monitored underwater volcano in the world. And what happens if the volcano actually erupts? First, the reassuring news. There is probably no danger for people on the coast. The volcano is too far away and too deep underwater to cause any direct damage.
Scott Nooner from the University of North Carolina explains, of course, we don't really know what it will take to trigger the next eruption, or exactly when that will happen, but the eruptions so far have all been relatively harmless to humans. Nevertheless, such an underwater volcanic eruption is a spectacular event. When Axial Seamount explodes, hot magma shoots out of cracks and vents on the seafloor, the rock hits the cold water and immediately solidifies into characteristic pillow lava. These are rounded lava formations that look like stacked pillows. At the same time, huge clouds of steam are created from superheated seawater, and the seabed can sink by several meters when the magma chamber empties. For marine life, however, the danger is different. The 2011 eruption showed what can happen. Entire areas of the seabed were flooded with hot lava. Deborah Kelly from the University of Washington reports, in 2011 we saw one of the areas with hydrothermal vents completely covered by lava flows. It wiped everything out. But what was fascinating was that when we checked back 3 months later, animals and bacteria had repopulated the area. These are surprisingly resilient ecosystems.
This is actually one of the most fascinating aspects of these underwater volcanoes. On the one hand, they destroy local ecosystems, but at the same time, they create new habitats. The hot hydrothermal vents that form after an eruption are oases of life in the deep sea. Here, bizarre creatures thrive that can survive completely without sunlight and feed on chemicals. A completely different principle of life than on the surface. As Dr. Ian Malcolm said in Jurassic Park,
life, finds a way.
But back to the current situation. All signs clearly point to an eruption.
After the dramatic peak of over 2,000 quakes in June, seismic activity has calmed down somewhat to only 100 quakes per day, but it is still extremely high. At the same time, the seafloor continues to rise, albeit more slowly than at the beginning of the year. Scientists are observing a fascinating ebb and flow of activity. Sometimes the earthquake rate rises sharply, then drops again. Sometimes the ground deformation accelerates, then slows down. It is like a geological heartbeat approaching its peak. Researchers describe this as wavering, a constant fluctuation between calm and unrest. And what is particularly exciting is that even earthquakes on the other side of the Pacific have an effect on axial seamount. When a strong earthquake struck Kamchatka in Russia in July, the sensitive instruments at the volcano registered the ground movement thousands of kilometers away.
The subsequent tsunami even triggered the automatic warning systems because the pressure changes resembled those of an impending eruption. This interconnectedness shows how sensitive the system is and how well the monitoring works. Researchers are now able to distinguish between real volcanic warnings and external disturbances, an important skill when trying to predict the perfect timing of an eruption.
And the prediction is eruption before the end of this year. All indicators suggest that Axial Seamount has reached a critical threshold. The only question is, will it be a spectacular eruption like in 1998 or a moderate event like in 2015? Even the experts can't say yet, but what we do know is that when it happens, scientists will be able to follow it live.
For the first time in the history of volcanology, researchers can use this technique to observe an eruption in real time from the very first moment and understand exactly what is happening deep within the Earth. This will revolutionize our understanding of volcanoes. And of course, I'll let you know right away as soon as it starts. So feel free to subscribe to the channel and don't forget to give a thumbs up so we can hit 5,000 likes. And now we're heading to a much more dangerous volcano.
A gigantic crack has opened up beneath Europe's most dangerous supervolcano, Campiflagrei near Naples. Find out what scientists have discovered there and what the probability of the supervolcano erupting is in my new video, which you can find at the top right. And at the bottom right, you'll find another video about science and space. Otherwise, I'd say see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.